Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I would like to share with you some ideas and notes I have made for dealing with the challenges, dilemmas, assumptions, and opportunities in our way to sustainable development in our era, in an era of crisis. And actually, two of these crises are still with us. The COVID-19 pandemic and the crisis of the war in Ukraine. Two crises that started from local, national, and affect the entire globe as it concerns energy, food production, apart from the humanitarian and health issues. These crises are connected with the challenges that are with us for some time. And the major two of them are the climate change and the massive loss of biodiversity. These two are really interconnected, and they are connected to a series of other root causes, if you wish, such as overpopulation. We are now at the level of 8 billions, unemployment, but also consumerism and use of natural resources, overexploitation of natural resources beyond the capacities of the natural boundaries of our planet. When we are talking about the climate change, I have to remind us that approximately 15 years ago, when we started predicting, let's say, having the different scenario, we believed that we may, with the business as usual of that moment, we had as most probable temperature for the end of the century, the 4 to 5 degrees. I will come back to that later on, based on some different assumptions. The major, at the moment, we have already evidences, proofs of the change of our planet. And we know that we are in the hottest period ever of the recorded history, and all what we have from sediments and other ways to calculate what were the temperatures of the past. We are 1.2 to 1.3 degrees higher than the average of all the previous years, millennia. What is the result of that increase? It is already the melting of ice caps, and you see what is going on in the Antarctica. A big part of this of the cover is destroyed, and we have lost many significant parts of glaciers. We are afraid of bigger similar destructions in Himalaya and elsewhere. We hope that this will not be as bad as some predict, already with 1.2 degrees. And we have agreed in Paris to try not to exceed 1.5 degrees. We know that with the delay we have in approaching this target, 13 out of the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals agreed in 2015, have not reached the point we expected, or actually with the crisis, we have lost part of the progress that has been achieved in the previous years. But when we are talking about already existing changes in the planet, we have already a tremendous loss of biodiversity. We have a series of droughts and floods, reduced river flows in European rivers, and all over the world. In the Nile, for example, in the upper and in the blue Nile, in the two parts, we have something like 20 and 30% decrease of the peak, the maximum, the peak values recorded annually. So in the last few years, we have 20, 30 less than the historical peaks. But we have also important heat waves with death tolls for people and animals, and of course extended forest fires, and all of that lead to a significant loss of agricultural production. Why we have that? Because, as I said, we have, with our activities, let me put it in a nutshell, we have added something like 3 billion tons, we humans, 3 billion tons of carbon in the atmosphere. 3 billion tons, to give you a comparison for mass and volume, corresponds to the total material that is included in all human structures all over the world and all objects we have manufactured. All this is now in the atmosphere as carbon. So you understand that this is a blanket all over our Earth, and also the production, for example, of some continents, for example, only of the United States, out of this, the 1/5 is produced by the United States. And all this, if I put it in to show you what should be done and where we are, the CO2 carbon dioxide emissions tons per capita per year in Canada, for example, and the United States, approximately the same, are 14.2 per capita, per person, per year. In China, this is 5. In India, is 2.1. In sub-Saharan Africa, in some areas, is less than 2. And we need to reach approximately 2.2 in 2030, and less than 1/2 by 2050. Is it at all possible? The answer is yes. It is if we try hard. Let me give you a few elements from from Sharm el-Sheikh, from COP27, where I have participated actively. We have bad news and good news. The bad news is that we are late as it concerns the agreements of Paris. As I said, we are already at about 1.3 degrees. The good news, and this is not something not expected. We were afraid of that, and the crisis played a role. The good news is that we expect that with current provisions, we may have by the end of the century 2 to 3 degrees, not 5, a little bit than half of the predicted, which is a very good news. Not as good as we wish and as we wished, but I'm afraid that we may try and reach something around 2 degrees. And this is by itself a good news. It was obtained through really new political awakening and revised policies, global policies, which require a lot of effort. The second reason is the astonishing decline of the price of clean energies. Nobody expected such a drop of the, this is the result of innovation and technology. And also, we should also recognize that some of the assumptions we had were not so good. Actually, we have a revision of some of the modeling assumptions we have. This means that if we manage to be at the 2 degrees, of course the planet will continue and change even more. For example, with 2 degrees, because the heat is moving from the equator, from the tropicals towards the poles, the species also follow that. They go north or south. And even with 2 degrees, 10,000 of the most important species will lose half of their habitat, even with this moderate increase. But not only that, there are several other problems. For example, the spillover of viruses, because with this move, viruses from one species, there are many new encounters among species, and a virus from one species gets into another, and then you have this spillover of viruses. We expect that in the coming 40 to 50 years, we'll have 4,000 of these spillovers. Of course, we hope that most of them will not be as dangerous and harmful as COVID, but many of them will be. This requires to remain somewhere in between 1.5 and 2 or 2 and something, requires a total transformation of all our systems of production and consumption, and for example, starting with the energy systems, the transportation, the building, the agricultural production, the overall infrastructures. As I said, some predict that even with this moderate change, we'll have a new era of disasters. What we have as technical means are promising. It is promising what we have for methods. First of all, we need to start by revisiting and understanding that governance schemes need to be changed and policies need to be truly integrated. One of these policies we are advocating for is the WIFE, the water, energy, food ecosystem policy, to see all these four together. And within this, we need to see how we can generate new water. And water treatment, sewage treatment for production of clean water or grey water is one of them. Better management of groundwater is another. And of course, desalination using clean technologies. We need to have, in order to have clean energy, we have to move into new types of solar, offshore wind power. There are excellent new systems that also monitor the presence or the approach of cetaceans or other species, so not to be endangered. These two, together with a new generation of advanced nuclear reactors, small reactors that can be moved from place to place, and geothermal and other waves and other, could generate also enough energy for the new green hydrogen production. So we hope there is prediction that by 2030 the traditional fuel will be reduced to 30% and the rest will be covered by what I mentioned before. In the transport, we expect to have very significant changes with electric cars, with biking, green spaces, public transport, and modes that are at the moment almost unthinkable for us. There is, as it concerns particularly long distance transport. Buildings require massive changes for insulations, for changes with perhaps smaller windows, new equipment that need to be produced massively. For example, if you want to have a door that is so good in keeping, in insulating, like a door of a refrigerator, and you order it now, it costs a lot. But if you compare it with the price of a door of a refrigerator or the refrigerator as a whole, we need to produce refrigerators we produced in millions. In millions, we need the new equipment for replacing, retrofitting the different buildings. We are talking about massive transformations. And what I can say is that many of them will manage to respond to the needs for mitigation and adaptation, particularly in our developed world. We may have hardier infrastructures, higher dikes, new infrastructures, cooling infrastructures, cool roofs, new pavements, water canals under buildings, under buildings, large-scale air conditioning, and so on and so forth. But this is for the minority of the planet. What about the rest of the planet, particularly the particularly poor, who have contributed less than 1% for the damage? We are talking about a major equity and a major climate justice. Let's say in Sahel, in sub-Saharan Africa, there where we have 60% of the population with ages less than 25 years old, with massive unemployment, with very weak governments, with absence of infrastructures, with high number of terrorist groups and groups that are practically are groups of criminals, and they create excessive humanitarian problems, particularly for women and for girls and children. And there is one of the big problems of the future. I want to say that because one American actually consumes 200 times as one of the people of these areas of Africa, of India, of Africa in particular. And by the way, with the 1213 degrees, they have already lost 15% of their agricultural production. So we are talking about real problems. Opportunities, of course, opportunities, many more opportunities, because to change, to transform all what we are discussing generates trillions of revenues. It is estimated that from the solar entrepreneurs and others in the energy, in renewable energies, will have $12 trillion annual revenue gains. So we hope that some of this will come into the economy and redistribute, generating more jobs, green jobs. Also, we've heard in COP27 that philanthropy already contributes something like $67 billion per year, but only 2% of that is going to climate change and nature at the moment. And they promise to increase this amount, but not to solve the problem per se with these billions. They say that these billions will motivate trillions of dollars that are what is necessary actually for the transformation. And we need to create the necessary capital, the human capital, I mean, with digitalization, digital literacy, new green training for new green skills. But also, we need to see at many levels the leadership. We need to put particular emphasis on the universities, because this is the immediate next leadership generation. We need, in Greece, we have the new now strategy for universities, for the sustainability in universities. We have presented it also internationally. And we need to change the curricula to make the university showcases of sustainability, to work with the governance inside the universities and also linking the universities really with the society. Still, what we need is to address the eco-anxiety, the brain damage problems. We are talking about now new neurophysiology approaches where we are talking about not only brain health, but also the green brain capital, brain skills, the ecological intelligence, all kind of enabling conditions for the society and for the individuals. We are talking about a new era, a really new era. And this is also where UNESCO, and we had recently a meeting of UNESCO chairs in Paris where I participated, where UNESCO came with the suggestion and a new book about reimagining our future, or our futures will not be exactly the same in all parts of the world. So what is that? It is that we need to couple the ethical values with hope, together with the technical ingenuity, in order to address the new era. And even if sometimes our analyses cannot be optimistic, we have to conduct policies in a very optimistic way, allowing the planet and humanity to find its way and reducing the delays from the vested interests. Thank you very much for your attention.